Hey guys, it's a steaming pile of ship here, and in today's video we'll be taking a look at the Tier 9 US premium battleship, the Missouri. Now I've got to say I've wanted to do a video on this ship for quite some time now because, quite frankly, it's the ship that represents my home state. So I'm kind of happy that I'll finally be able to make a video on this ship that I'm really fond of. The Missouri is an Iowa-class battleship, and as such it plays a lot like the Iowa, with the express difference of having, obviously, all of the benefits of a premium ship, but in terms of actual gameplay, instead of getting the option to mount a fighter or a spotter, you have radar, which, since the spotter nerf, or the fighter scout nerf rather, this is a huge advantage. It basically takes a slot that really wouldn't be used for too much other than spotting torps and actually allows you to spot destroyers inside their smoke. This is the only battleship with radar available, so that's a huge advantage. It's also a little bit of a target on your back. Destroyers are going to see you as something they need to worry about, but also something that if they take out, they won't have to worry about nearly as much. So in terms of prioritizing, most destroyers are going to look at a Missouri, and instead of seeing just another Iowa, they'll see a huge threat. Speaking of radar, we're going to be heading to a little spot that I like to go on this map. We're on Okinawa, and we're heading to the little, you see that little island in between A and B, that little island in between, or the little island, and there's a space in between it and the larger island. We're going to basically head right into there. This will allow us to have radar access to a little over, I think a little bit over half of B from where we'll be at, as well as being able to keep our flanks protected from torpedo attacks and really only open up the front of the ship to attack from most enemies. This is obviously a very strong position. I see Yamatos go here, I've seen Montanas go here. It's not quite as effective, I don't think, with the Montana because you do lose half of your firepower using this little spot, but it's nevertheless a great spot to go as a battleship. And the Missouri, since it only has one turret on the back, this isn't nearly the trade-off, I think would be the word. It isn't nearly the trade-off that you would have to deal with if you were in a Montana. Now, luckily and unluckily, we don't have to worry as much about destroyers due to the fact that there is an enemy aircraft carrier. It's a Saipan. It's probably not going to be going for me or any of the other Tier 9 ships, so I don't really have to worry about it too much. It does have Tier 9 planes, but I also have Tier 9 AA. And of course it doesn't have as many Tier 9 planes as it would be, or as it should have, in order to really go after ships like the Missouri. The Iowa and the Missouri both have very, very strong anti-aircraft suites, which make them very, very hard to attack as a carrier. Excuse me, I almost said character right there. Some aircraft carriers such as Taihos, Hakuryu probably aren't going to have a huge issue attacking you if they really want to. I mean, they'll lose planes, but it's not going to be nearly the, well, they have a lot of planes, and they have a lot of planes in the squadrons as well as the hangar. The Saipan has neither of those, so any planes the Saipan loses, it's going to feel, which means he's probably not going to go for me. That means he is likely to go for the other Saipan as well as friendly destroyers who don't have as much anti-aircraft. Again, that makes us a little bit less important in terms of radar, but we still have our utility if the enemy decides to smoke up. Now we are starting to get fairly broadside to the enemy simply because of the fact that they're moving towards Charlie, which means we're going to push a little bit in here so we can get the bow pointed a little bit better. I'm trying to take out this Dmitry Donskoy because he's giving me full broadside and he's really not doing too much to avoid fire. He just keeps getting lucky. I really want to take him out though because we do have two destroyers in the area that he's at, and they're both asking for help shooting at this guy, so I want to prioritize killing him. He goes undetected here, but it's likely that he'll start shooting at the enemy destroyers fairly soon, and he's now backing up So we'll give a slight lead to the reverse part of the ship. He's burning in 2 different spots, but this should be the killing blow. And we do get that nice citadel and kill the guy, making it so our destroyers have a little bit less to worry about over there. But as I mentioned, the carrier was likely to go after them both, and he's going after both of them, keeping both of them spotted. The Tashkent, if you look on the mini-map, is actually being attacked by torpedo bombers, and the Benson is being kept spotted by fighters. Now that we are clear, I believe we're clear of destroyers anyways, we're going to start pushing a little bit into B. We do have a friendly Friedrich der Grosse. He's going after B as well, which means since he's getting points, there's no destroyer in the immediate cap. I want to try and take out that carrier, but I think he's just a little too far out and not quite the threat that the Iowa over there poses. But the Sitago is another very juicy target here as well, so I'm going to go for him. I'm popping my radar not because I've seen a destroyer, but I wanted to be absolutely certain that there was no destroyers nearby, and it looks like I may waste a radar charge, but we know that there's no enemy DDs nearby, and the only enemy destroyer left is a Benson, so since he's not near us in our radar range, that means he's also not in his torpedo range, which is very handy. Enemy Indianapolis, we'll try and take him out if we can. He's fairly close to us. He's also made of citadels, kind of like the Pensacola. He gets a little bit lucky. I aimed too high, only nick him with one over penetration. But he's kind of like the Pensacola, and it has a large citadel. It does get more armor, though. It's much more tanky than the Pensacola. And it's fairly maneuverable too, and he's starting to turn out, so I'm kind of waiting to see what we can make use of these shells with. I was going to wait for him to fully turn, but this Atago here is giving us nice broadside, and he doesn't seem to be moving, so as we slow down, I'll start taking a shot at him, and those are looking very good. Well, we only hit with one shell, but if it's a citadel, I'm not going to complain. One of the nice things about the Missouri, much like the Iowa and the Montana, is it has access to a special accuracy mod that U.S. battleships Tier 9 and up get. I can't remember the exact name of this module, but I'll show you when we go back to port and go over the build. But it basically gives you something like a 12% accuracy buff, I believe. Again, I'm not quite sure what the exact stat is, but we'll go over it when we get back into the port. But that's a fairly huge buff, which means that if you really want this ship to be accurate, it's very possible to get this ship in that sort of, well, you're able to make that build happen. Let's just put it that way. You still have battleship accuracy, of course, because you still have to be balanced somehow. If we were laser accurate, you know, no one would play anything but battleships. However, you're much more accurate than something like that Friedrich der Grosse that was over there. You're probably fairly close to the accuracy of some Japanese battleships. You really shine when you're about 15, 12 kilometers away. That's a very good area to be in as a US battleship with this module. I really don't want to waste my shells on those cruisers. I think they're a little too far out. They're probably wary of me shooting at them by now, and they're already a little bit angled, so I'm going to go for this Iowa here, who still seems to be giving me broadside. I'm not quite sure if he's just preparing for, well, it looks like he has Ocean Soul camo, so I can only assume he's probably grinding towards the Montana. And I don't know if he's thinking that he'll be able to get away with going fully broadside at Tier 10, but, well, that's unfortunate. He's run into a sinking wreck. But he's certainly not playing as smart, and neither is this Iowa, of course. We don't quite get a Citadel, which we would have loved to have, especially since he was not in any position to be able to dodge or maneuver or anything like that. But unfortunately, battleships still do suffer from battleship accuracy, and he's actually firing high explosive at me. He starts one fire, but that's really nothing to worry about. But we'll make him pay for it anyways, hopefully with a Citadel, and we're rewarded nicely. Now you would think that after that he would immediately start moving around, and we're going to start repairing some of the lost damage. I'm going to get the rear turret hopefully aimed at him too. You would have thought that he would have learned, but he was still sailing fairly broadside to me. Speaking of broadside, we do have a Baltimore that is again threatening destroyers with his radar, so I want to try and put him under the waves here as we charge forward towards the enemy Missouri. We get a nice 7K volley on him, but unfortunately nothing too powerful. We didn't get that citadel that would have really liked. Friendly Benson under air attack by the enemy Saipan. We're starting to shoot down a few of his planes. Oh no, we're under attack, excuse me. I'm slowing down here. I want the front torpedo to miss and that second torpedo to hit us right in the belt, which is exactly what we got. Because it hit us in the belt, it didn't have enough power to actually start flooding on us, which means we don't have to use repair party, which means we can save it in case we get flooded or burned by some other thing. Nice citadel on the Iowa there. It seems like these Iowas on the enemy team really don't know what angling is, but I'm not going to complain if they're on the enemy team. I'll only complain if they're on mine. The enemy Missouri, since he is bow on to me, I'm kind of going forward towards him, but I'm really not prioritizing him. I want to get this Iowa. And he's getting very close. We will start designating targets here. Another citadel. We actually knock his engine out. But we're definitely in a nice spot to kill this Iowa, hopefully. But we do need to start worrying. Our hit points are getting low. Our heal is about ready, and we'll be able to use it. But if we get set on fire too much in this little spot, we are going to have to worry about managing our damage control. And right when it would have been very, very helpful to have a citadel, we not only get set on fire, but we also don't get a citadel. Now, I wish that the destroyer behind me would have laid smoke on me. I mean, I know I'm going forward towards the enemy, but he could have said something like, hey, let me help you out. It would have been nice to have smoke right here, but unfortunately we don't have that option. It probably wouldn't be worth too much. We finally get another citadel, although I think it was only 2,000 damage. We wouldn't really have to worry about it too much. It wouldn't give us that big of an advantage since there is a Missouri this close, but it would have been nice. And we do have to put that fire out because we were most likely going to burn a little while longer, and I wouldn't have liked that. The enemy carrier is coming in though, and it looks like he's finally going to be able to put us under the waves. We get the Confederate award, and right before the game, or right before we die, the game is about to end. Screw you, carrier. Anyways, let's go to the score. So a nice result from a fairly short game. I think it was only something like 13 minutes long. 177,000 damage done, 11 planes shot down, which shows you that the AA is pretty good considering that they were tier 9 planes, but what you need to remember was the Saipan was never really focusing me that hard during the game. It was only really at the end, and we just had enough AA range that he couldn't quite always skirt the edges of it when trying to go for other people, so he really lost a good portion of his planes due to that. We sunk 2 ships and we got 7 citadel hits, which is what contributed to such a decent amount of damage done. Moving on, we were top of the leaderboard with 2,284 base experience. We got the Confederate award and barely got the Dreadnought. Had that Saipan managed to kill us at the end, we obviously would not have got that achievement. 177,000 damage done, of course. Only about 3,000 damage was not from the main battery. This really isn't a ship that secondary builds are all that great on. In fact, because they're not the greatest on this ship, I tend to focus for anti-aircraft builds on the Missouri and the Montana. Damage received, well, we tanked 2.4 million potential damage, but actual damage that we took was 110,000. We had 87,000 done by artillery, 1 torpedo hit from the Saipan did about 6,000, and we burned for 16,000. So realistically, the ship can be tanky when it needs to be. And for credits, since this is one of the best credit earners in the game, We got 628,000 credits. Do keep in mind I have the military month flag, as always. And for experience with the modifiers, 8,700 ship experience and 430 free experience. Anyways, let's go over the build. So let's talk build, but before that I do want to hit up the fact that there are two camouflages available for the Missouri. There's the, in my opinion, more common. I seem to see this one a little bit more. I believe this is called like Measure 22 in real life, but in here it's Type 10. But you also have the option to mount the same camouflage that the Iowa has as a permanent camouflage option. So you have two different choices. Let's go on to the consumables. Get premium everything. Increase your survivability, get that extra radar charge. You're a Missouri captain, you don't have any sort of need to worry about credits. You will make plenty. Going on to the upgrades. Main armaments mod 1 to keep your turrets intact. AA guns mod 2, that gives you a nice little AA range of let's see, 7.2 kilometers. I thought that's what it was, but I wanted to be sure. In the third slot, this is where you're going to want Artillery Plotting Room Mod 2. It gives you minus 11% to maximum dispersion of your main battery guns. So that's where you really gain an advantage over a lot of other battleships because you have that increase in your accuracy. Fourth slot, Damage Control System Mod 1. Pretty self-explanatory for a battleship. In the fifth slot, you could go with either Steering Gears Mod 2 or Damage Control System Mod 2. I've been using the Damage Control System Mod 2, but Steering Gears would be nice for swinging the rear turret out and just trying to get that extra shot off in between the enemy battleship's reload, as well as helping to dodge torps. However, this is what I'm running for now. Finally, Concealment System Modification 1 is what you'll want in the sixth slot. I was considering putting on that radar modification just to test out, but unfortunately you don't actually get the option on the Missouri, so I think that's a little bit of a, well, I think you're missing out a little bit. I would have liked to at least test it. Anyways, let's move on to the captain. In the first slot, I have Steven Seagal, so I'm running with Expert Loader because it gives you, instead of a 50% bonus to reload time, a 50% or a 75% bonus to the reload time when your shells switches. So this is really handy for when you pop radar because you see a destroyer. Before you pop radar, switch to high explosive, pop radar, and then if you see a destroyer, you've already got HE loaded, and it only takes you like 7 seconds. In slot number 2, I would go ahead with either Expert Marksman or Adrenaline Rush first. Considering I put this captain on a lot of other battleships, I got Expert Marksman first, and then I went for Adrenaline Rush on the second way around. After that, you're going to want Superintendent. Finally, in the fifth row, you're going to prioritize Concealment Expert, then you'll want AFT for your anti-aircraft, and after that, I think I would probably try and save up enough points for maybe Vigilance, or possibly High Alert. That'd be really nice too. Basics of survivability would be good as well. But anyways, that is my Missouri build. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is a steaming pile of ship signing off.